Okay, here's our setup for this lab. We have again a laser and different slit things, and over here my camera and the screen again. And now let's look at the equipment a little bit more closely. Okay, here's the apparatus we have for today. It's a single slit apparatus, and the parts we're going to be using, we have another variable slit where I can change the width of it. These are all going to be the width, because there's only one slit today. So if I dial this, you can see it gets skinnier, and if I dial this, you can see it gets fatter and skinnier as I turn. So as I dial this, you can see that it gets fatter and skinnier as I turn that. And then we have these single slits with different slit widths, 0.02 millimeters, 0.04 millimeters, 0.08, and 0.16 millimeters. And if let's see, we can look through those. There we go, you can actually see the slits. There's the fattest one, and they get skinnier. We also have a thing that's instead of a slit, it's a line. So let's see if we can see through there. Yes, you can see through there. It's open, except for a little teeny thin, like a hair in there. And it's 0.08 millimeters. So it's the same width as the 0.08 millimeter slit, but it's the opposite. It's all clear except for a little block, a little hair in the middle, instead of all being, instead of the slits that are all dark with a little opening in the middle. Okay, so it's like the opposite of that. And we'll look and see what pattern that creates. And then we have another one that's half and half here. That's so you can compare easily. It's got a slit on one side and a hair on the other side of the same width, so we can compare those. Okay, we'll be trying out all that stuff. Okay, first thing we have here is the single slit set up on the variable dial width setting. Right now it's on a very wide setting, and let's just look at this pattern for a second. And one question we should ask is, how would we tell this is a single slit versus a double slit? Now that we have experience with double slits from last week, what's different about this pattern? One thing that couple things I would point out was, one, that I don't see any missing fringes. They're all kind of there, and also the one in the middle looks a little bit wider and brighter than the other ones. So those are a couple of differences between the double slit pattern we had. So now I'm going to go ahead and dial the slit, make it narrower. I'll go up and down, and you can see how that affects the pattern here. So here we go, dialing it narrower, 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 and you can still see that now we don't have any of those smaller little fringes in the central one, right? We've got this large wide thing here. Okay, so I'm going to go again down to the there's a wide slit and there is a narrow slit, so you can see just conceptually how that happens. Okay, here's a pattern with an opening of 0.16 millimeters, and again the distance to the screen is 270 centimeters. Now I'm going to change the opening to 0.08 millimeters. That's 0.08 millimeters. Now I'm going to change the opening again to 0.04 millimeters. And now I'm going to change the opening again to 0.02 millimeters. Okay, here I zoomed out a little bit on the 0.02 millimeter fringe so you could see how wide this pattern gets. Okay, here is on the wall now. I have dialed the equipment to, instead of a slit, a little hair, and the diameter of the hair is 0.04 millimeters. And you can compare this pattern to the pattern we had when we had a slit of 0.04 millimeters. A couple things that I would, if I were your lab partner, I would notice would be that there's a whole bunch more light now here in the center, and then there's all this speckly light on the screen. It looks like a lot of laser light is getting through that didn't used to get through before. And then the center, it's really, really bright spot. But then the pattern on the sides looks pretty similar to the other pattern. And to understand that, you have to kind of think about what the apparatus actually looks like that the laser is going through. And you can take measurements from this to see if the fringe space, how the fringe spacing compares with the fringe spacing when it was a slit of the same width. Okay, now I've got the setup where there's a slit and a hair right next to each other, and I can move the laser from one to the other and we can see the difference. So I'm going to now move the laser back and forth and you can see what happens. So now the laser is on the hair. There's the laser on the hair. You can see the pattern and see the big bright spot in the middle. And now I'm going to move the laser over to the slit. Now it's on the slit of the same size. And now it's on the hair. So you can see that the patterns are pretty much the same, except for that sort of big bright spot in the middle. So you could use this method to figure out the width of something like a hair using the same theory as you do to find the width of a slit. Okay, so here's a red laser. This is a opening of 0.16 millimeters, same distance to the screen. Now I'm going to change it to a couple other settings. So here comes 0.08 millimeters. Here is 0.04 millimeters. And here's 0.02 millimeters. Okay.